And also tonight, as we have predicted for months, the disgraced former FBI director, Jim Comey, he's prepared to cash in on his newfound fame. I did predict that. In just a few weeks, Comey's going to kick off his whirlwind book tour. He's got tough interviews with Stephen Colbert, Clinton sycophant George Stephanopoulos, and a cozy sit-down with the ladies of The View. And according to a new report from Axios, Comey's planning to, quote, come out hot and correct all the so-called lies about him and the FBI. For months, we have literally been bringing you, the American people, on a nightly basis, breaking news, hard-hitting, investigative reports about the corruption at some of the highest levels of our government, including the shocking details about the abuse of power at the very top of the FBI. Now, James Comey, you want to come out hot? You want to answer hard, important questions? You're welcome on this program. Tonight, I am officially opening up an invitation to Jim Comey. You want to sell your book? Come on the show. We'll give you a full hour. You name a day, we'll make it work. We'll work with your schedule. I'll give you 3 hours on my nationally syndicated radio show, which, by the way, is on 575 radio stations around America, so everybody can hear from you. And we'll ask you the tough questions, the ones that Stephen Colbert might miss. For example, did you, in fact, tell a closed session of Congress that you believe Michael Flynn did not lie to the FBI? Did you think he's being unfairly prosecuted? Why did you draft a letter exonerating Hillary Clinton of charges in the email investigation months before she was interviewed by the FBI and 17 other important people? And will you explain the lies and the omissions to the FISA court? And why did you tell Trump that the dossier was unverified and salacious 3 months after you allowed the same dossier to be presented to the FISA court when you didn't tell the FISA court Hillary bought and paid for it, and you knew that? Why did you withhold the fact that Clinton paid for the dirty dossier? And how do you explain your unlawful leaking of classified information to the media after you were fired? Through that Columbia professor you wanted the special counsel? Jim Comey, if you're looking for fame and fortune, you want to sell books, by all means, have fun on The View. Have a great time. Yuck it up with Colbert. Hang out with George Stephanopoulos. Go get a beer afterwards. But if you really want to reach all Americans, defend your honor, if you really want to tell the truth, we've got a lot of questions for you. Come on this show. A full hour, 3 hours of radio. That's the best deal you're going to get. We'll lay out all the facts. We'll lay out all the evidence. We'll give you a chance to respond. And as we say here at Fox, well, we report. We'll let our audience decide if you're telling the truth. Here with reaction, Fox News contributors Sarah Carter, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. I'm looking at all of this. Let's first start. I think this is important as it relates to these text messages.
Right. Well, it's pretty clear that Peter Strzok was intending to manipulate a federal judge who's also a FISA judge and may have made one of the decisions to spy on Carter Page to the damage of the Trump campaign and the Trump presidency. And we know that Peter Strzok is the head of the counterintelligence at the FBI, so he had to have been involved in that FISA application. Mm-hmm. Did Contreras know? And if he did know, I would think he'd have to know, why didn't he recuse himself? And why didn't he recuse himself in the Flynn case? Because Peter Strzok, his pal, is a key witness in that case. That is such an important point, wouldn't you think, right? All right, Sarah, you did amazing work today. I think it came out at noon. I think your article on SarahACarter.com was up like 2 hours later. I don't know how you were able to pull it all together so fast. Let's get your take and your understanding based on your sources and conversations. Jim Jordan will join us in the next segment. But obviously, if it wasn't for Jordan and Meadows, we wouldn't have this information because Rod Rosenstein doesn't want us to have this information.
Oh, absolutely. I think that this shows diligence and hard work on the part of the House Oversight Committee and their investigators. They have been going back and forth to the DOJ. Now, the DOJ has kept a lot of these documents. There's these semi-redacted documents. And once again, I stress, it's over 1.2 million documents that Inspector General Michael Horowitz has been sifting through. And so anytime anybody from the committee wants to see a just a very less redacted version of the 3,162 pages that they got, They have to go over to the DOJ and then try to put the pieces together. This is incredible. This piece of information was not privy to national security, and it was also not something very personal. This was something that would have answered a question that a lot of people have been asking for some time now. Why did Judge Contreras recuse himself? Why was he recused? You know, we have to have these questions answered because in December 1st, 2017, General Flynn sat before him and pled guilty. And then 7 days later, he has to recuse himself. So something happened. And one more point, Sean, on Strzok. Remember, in 2016 is when they shared these text messages. Strzok is head of a major division, counterintelligence division of the FBI, and he's focused on Russia. So we know that he was dealing with a lot more cases, not just this case in specific. And he admits with Page himself that meeting with Judge Contreras could put Judge Contreras in a precarious situation where he'd have to recuse himself.
But they're going to do it anyway.
But they're going to do it anyways. What does that tell you about them?
It tells you that the stench in Washington is just overwhelming. Everybody's in bed with everybody else. They don't recuse themselves amid glaring conflicts of interest, and this is a perfect example. You know, when I used to appear in front of judges, occasionally they would recuse themselves, but they would explain their recusal on the record to be honest and forthright. Contreras didn't do that. He kept it a secret, and that invites the question, if you have nothing to hide, why are you hiding? It's also curious he didn't recuse himself until a week after Flynn pled guilty. My question is, did Flynn know that the FBI agents who interviewed him went back to Comey and Yates and said he's innocent? He told the truth.
And Comey said it.
Yes.
So what does that mean for Michael Flynn?
Well, I would predict that Judge Sullivan, who's the new judge, may get to the bottom of this. He has demanded that Mueller turn over all exculpatory evidence, and those interviews would be exculpatory. And if it is true that Flynn and his lawyer didn't fully know that they'd actually been exonerated by these agents, then his guilty plea ought to be set aside.
According to my sources, Sean, he did not know. He did not know about this bit of information. So that's going to be very interesting. And what Greg said is very important because remember, Flynn was cornered. And even after Strzok and the other agent interviewed Flynn, according to the sources, according to James Comey himself, they believed that he did not lie. So special counsel Robert Mueller did find a way to get him to plead guilty to one count of lying to the FBI. I think there's a lot more questions here than answers, and I think we're on the road to finding out what those are.
Mueller squeezed him, and he ruined his life.
By the way, the guy has to sell his house now.
He has to sell his house.
And I bet you they threatened his kid.
They did. My sources tell me they did threaten his son. And so, you know, this is overzealous prosecutors and the powerful government that can ruin you financially and destroy your life. It's no wonder that Michael Flynn finally threw in the towel.
What about Christopher Steele? I mean, this is the guy behind the Trump hoax. You know, he went to Russia and Russian government sources.
Yeah.
Clinton paid for it all. And we're told, reported this week, he didn't even believe his own salacious report.
Right. I read the interrogatory answers in the British court case. And he makes it clear that all of his information is completely unverifiable, that would be denied by his sources. Sure, they were, because the sources didn't exist. And if you read very closely and carefully, wow, Steele is really admitting that his entire story was a fairy tale.
Sarah, I cannot believe what I just heard.
It's very disturbing. And look, the lawsuit against Christopher Steele is very important because Christopher Steele slandered a lot of people in that dossier. And then it was solidified here in the United States after it was briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Trump, and then leaked by BuzzFeed and posted on BuzzFeed. And he attempted to leak that to a number of other news agencies beforehand. People have a right to regain their name back.
All right, you guys have been amazing.
And get the truth out.
All right, more in the special edition of Hannity. Congressman Jim Jordan, Congressman Ron DeSantis, Tom Fitton, as we continue.